Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a one-woman marvel, DiElle, a singer, songwriter, composer, and author who is here to talk not only about her new endeavor, one woman, one guitar, but also her crush from a BBC staple, Blue Peter's John Leslie. DiElle, how are you?
I'm really well, Kendra, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Now, Blue Peter is something in America I have no idea, but I'm sure there's lots of American pop culture that you have no idea about either. So for Americans, like I said, we're kind of clueless when it comes to pop culture from around the world. We tend to think ours is the most relevant, but Blue Peter is like the longest running children's program like ever. It beat out Sesame Street by a few years. So for those listening, can you give a quick rundown of what exactly Blue Peter is?
So Blue Peter is a staple of our childhood, and it goes back to when there were, really not very many channels on the TV at all. I don't know how it is for you guys, but there was a time where we only had like 3 channels, and Blue Peter was, I think, memories are hazy, but I think it was on every day, and I may be wrong about that, and it was like Sesame Street. It was just one of those shows that was on all of the time, and they had they had a studio dog, so there would be two or three presenters that become like the extra face in your living room every day. So to get a job as a Blue Peter presenter is like getting a job as a weather girl. It's an amazing opportunity. But it was such a popular program, and they would do all sorts of things like arts and crafts, and they would have different people in the studio, and all of your popular culture people would come in and do a bit, and they would have elephants and teach you about animals, and they had a studio dog, and it was great.
Well, it definitely sounds very Sesame Street.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people that started when Sesame Street started are still there. I think they live and die by the show. We don't really get a lot of turnover.
Yeah, it's an institution, right? It's like, everybody knows Sesame Street, and it's very similar in that you would have, guest bits and all of that. But I think I am guessing a little bit, but I think Blue Peter is probably aimed at slightly older children.
Possibly.
So it's not really really smallies, but slightly big ones.
But sometimes Sesame Street has little bits that go viral, so like us as adults, we will tune back in if Elmo's acting wild or something.
I've still got a friend who I used to work with years ago, who we were together all the time, and then we started like socializing together as well, and we started calling each other Bert and Ernie, and we still do that. We still do that to this day.
And was Blue Peter like a show you watched all the time, even before John Leslie was part of the show?
I think so. I think John Leslie was like my generation of Blue Peter presenters. So everybody's got their, like their James Bond. Everybody's got their their Blue Peter presenter that they that was most popular when they were in their formative years.
And you say like he was a presenter on the show, so he kind of does the like bits and everything.
Yeah, he was like so Blue Peter presenters are like an anchor on a news program, I guess, that they were the home face, and they were always in the studio, and they were the ones who would interview people and stuff. The other thing I've just remembered that Blue Peter used to do that everybody went crazy for was they used to do a thing where they would have all kinds of different types of competitions and challenges and stuff like that, and you could send in, if they had a art competition, for example, you could send your paintings in, and the ones that won got a Blue Peter badge, and these things were highly coveted. And so that was like before you could just tweet everybody, and before celebrities were accessible in any way at all, to actually be sent something from someone off the telly was just incredible. And So that was something that they used to do, where you could send in, and not everybody would get one, so it was quite a special thing to get a Blue Peter badge. I never got one, but
when Drag Race UK, because it's on the BBC, they can't win money, but they do win Blue Peter badges, and now I know where it's from.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's totally where that's come from.
Okay,
That is absolutely where that's come from.
So what about John Leslie stuck out to you when you were a kid watching this show? Like, what made him like kind of pique your interest?
I still to this very day have a thing, and it's not necessarily like a crush thing, but I'm quite short. I'm like 5'2", and I really love hanging out with tall people. I have a thing about tall people. I've got a friend called Reggie who's very tall, and I don't see him very often. And when I just sneak up, sorry, it sounds really weird, doesn't it? I just sneak up and stand next to him. There's something about I don't know, like feeling small and feeling looked after and feeling sort of precious. And there was something about John Leslie, because he's a tall guy, and he just, I don't know, I liked his face, and he just seemed really like sort of, you know, caring and cuddly, and then I think as I got a little bit bigger, those feelings developed into, you know, something a little bit more interesting than that. But I was still like really, really young. I was still like only 11 years old or something, and I think I didn't really understand what I was feeling, I think.
I was gonna say, you know, you weren't yet a teen, so was this one of the first sort of crushes you had that felt a little bigger than just, oh, you know, that kid in class is cute?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually bullied quite a lot at school, and I didn't have a great time with boys or girls actually. When I was really little, when I was like, you know, when I first went to school, and I think I don't really remember having a crush on anyone at school like younger than that age. I probably did, but there's nothing more sort of. I think that there were probably more just feelings about being around other people of the opposite sex in general. You know, boys, when you were younger, and it I guess it wasn't personal. It was just, you know, or you're just a boy, you're one of those things, and it wasn't about anyone in particular, but there was definitely something about, you know, I remember like hanging off his every word, and being really disappointed if I missed it, and if I couldn't watch Blue Peter for whatever reason.
Oh, I get that. Sounded like he was sort of comforting too, since you didn't have such a great time at school. You could come home and watch this like nice, good-looking guy who seems sweet. Oh
yeah, definitely. I think there was definitely something reassuring about it, and almost like a little bit of escapism, you know, that just you know, it's just the, you know, familiar voice. It's like listening to your favorite radio programs and stuff, and you develop a fondness for the radio host that you listen to a lot, and it's that sort of thing where I guess to a certain extent I did. There's a bond of some kind. There's a relationship of some kind that's built, that forms just from that amount of time. I guess.
And being someone that's been involved in music since you were a toddler, did you have any crushes on like musicians at this time, or was it just John Leslie?
When I was a bit older, when I was a bit older, I was obsessed with Bon Jovi at one point. But yeah, it was definitely more like 14, 15, 16 at that age. And the kind of music that I fell in love with my parents' record collection. So a lot of the musicians that I really, really loved, some of them had died before I was born. You know, they were like, it was so but Bon Jovi was a contemporary, and I think at one point I even felt like I felt like I looked like him. I put a post on my Facebook page a couple of years ago when I was saying, I really feel like I don't know why. I just had this urge to confess. I feel like I went through a phase where I even looked like Bon Jovi when I was about that age. I was like, and that's weird. And they were like, no, don't be ridiculous, don't be silly. And I found a picture of myself with like a similar haircut when he had like the 90s haircut and the glasses. And everyone's like, oh yeah, maybe there's a little bit there. But I was absolutely obsessed. And he was the only person that I had where like the typical teenage girl thing of like every inch of my bedroom wall was covered in Bon Jovi posters. And I remember one trip in particular where we'd been out shopping to the cash and carry and with my dad, which is not something that occurred very often. And because it was somewhere different from where you would normally shop, they had all these posters, and this poster of him in the bath.
Oh.
And he's wearing a crown of roses, and well, you know, to my mind, quite clearly is naked, and it's all, you know, very sexy, and he's covered in bubbles and stuff. And I was really shy child, and I begged my dad to buy it for me, and you could see that he was dying of embarrassment.
Did you get it?
And yeah, he did. He did get it for me, but he just, you know, like wordlessly, he just thought, oh, I'll just put it in the truck.
That is such a racy poster.
It was really.
I mean, it sounds gorgeous.
You can't see anything. It's like, you know, he's topless and there's bubbles and everything. But I think, you know, my little mind just went crazy and thought, oh my god, I have to have this photo.
I mean, I'm Philly on there because my thing was Backstreet Boys, and when they got on the cover of Rolling Stone, they were in suits, but their pants were down, and they had their boxers. And I remember on MTV they announced it was out, and I was like, it was probably like the evening time around dinner, and I was like 12, 13 years old. I threw the biggest fit. I threw myself on the floor for my mom to take me to town to get it, because it was probably a 15, 20-minute drive.
Wow.
And I was like, I need it now. Like I felt like I was gonna die if I didn't have it.
Oh, props to you for asking for it, though. I think I just was so horrified by these feelings and discussing it with my parents, particularly my dad, when I was that age. That I was just so embarrassed, and it was one of the. So fair play to you for asking for it.
I mean, they knew of my obsession. They knew my life. Even today, my dad will still be like, "How are the Backstreet Boys doing?" Like, I know that. They're like, "Oh, you know, they're doing." I'll update them on their lives. How do you think the crush on Bon Jovi, because you were slightly older, maybe your like hormones had developed a little more, compared to your crush on John Leslie, which seemed a little more innocent?
Yeah, I think it was definitely much more up front and center in my mind, and I was definitely obsessed for probably maybe 18 months or 2 years, where like I don't think I listened to anything else. I don't think I listened to any other music during that time. Certainly not very often. And I would, you know, every day on a journey to school. So I went to school quite far away, and so there was a train journey and then a bus or a walk the other side, and the whole journey was about an hour. And I would just listen to Bon Jovi albums constantly, and I was also, so I started training as a vocalist when I was 11. So I was training as well during that time, and I was and I would just. I think I might have Bon Jovi to thank for my ability to sing harmonies really well, actually, because I remember saying, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this. I remember saying to one of my friends that because I would always sing a harmony part, rather than, you know, when you're like sitting in the back of the bus screaming at the top of your voice your favourite song when you're 14, that everyone's singing the tune because that's what normal people do. And I would always sing a harmony part or a backing vocal or something. And see, I'm dying with embarrassment even telling you this story. And I said to one of my friends said, "Why do you do that? Why don't you just, you know, sing what everyone else sings?" And then I said to her, before I even thought about it, but before I even considered what came out of my mouth or how it would sound, I said to her, because then that way I'm singing with him, not as him. So in my mind, I'm on the stage at Wembley with Bon Jovi.
Well, you were just practicing in case.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, if you need me, I'm here. I'm just.
But from John Bon Jovi back to John Leslie,
yeah.
which you have a thing for Johns.
Yeah, you know, I do know a lot of Johns.
You noticed noted that the crush on John Leslie, it wasn't like a lengthy one by any means, months, no more than a year. You were sort of done with him. Was it that John Bon Jovi took over?
Yeah, maybe. I think John Leslie left Blue Peter, probably around about the time that I grew out of watching it, and I think probably those two things went hand in hand. That as I got older, then the kind of target market for Blue Peter, he fell away. But I do remember it being quite intense. It was very. And it was the kind of thing that, again, I would get shy about talking about it, and I would feel embarrassed about even talking about John Leslie. I would feel myself blushing and stuff, and when I was small. So yeah, probably it was a combination of things that the presenters changed, and I stopped watching it anyway, and I then. Went to a different school around about that time, so we changed schools around about the age of 11 here. So my routine would have been different, and watching more grown-up programs and stuff like that. But I think definitely.
But for John Leslie,
Bon Jovi definitely took over.
I mean, that's how it is. We have I think there's little chapters of our crushes. You can kind of bookmark each little moment of your life with who you're crushing on for sure. But John Leslie he left Blue Peter, but he was I was looking into him. He was like the it guy when it came to hosting back in the day. He went from Blue Peter. He did a run on the UK version of Wheel of Fortune, and even did a season of Survivor, which is big. Did you feel inclined to watch any of those? Dip back into the crush a little?
I was always pleased to see him. He's fallen. It would be remiss to sit here talking about him without acknowledging a couple of things. There've been he got in trouble. He was living a rock star. I think the reason why he left Blue Peter, and forgive me, John, if you're listening and I'm relaying this incorrectly, that I think he got in trouble for some drug use, and there were some allegations about sexual assault and stuff like that. He'd been acquitted twice of that. But there was a lot of bad. There was a lot of, he was sort of living a bit of a rock star lifestyle, and because that wasn't becoming to the image of somebody who's a children's TV presenter, that didn't go down very well. And I believe, I may well be wrong, I believe that's why he left Blue Peter. But I was always pleased to see him when he popped up on TV.
I mean, back in, I think it was about 2020, my favorite Backstreet Boy had some allegations as well. I don't think they went anywhere, to court or anything. I think it kind of fizzled. But it was kind of oh, no, my crush from my childhood. How could you? But, since it went away, I'm good now. But did that impact you at all when he was, in the headlines in some negative light?
Yeah, I think... it's the not knowing what to believe, I think I found quite hard, and I always try to reserve judgment when these things are in the news, because the way that things are reported is so sensationalized anyway. And nobody really knows. Nobody really knows what happened, and and until that's gone through the courts. Like I say, he's been through the court system twice and been acquitted twice. I'm sort of one of those people that would think, well, if anyone, we have to go with that.
I mean,
you kind of have to go with that. It's not my place to judge anyway, but it is difficult when somebody, all of these things are coming up that are so at odds with their,
image,
the TV persona that and obviously, I'm a big girl now. I know that people can be a children's TV presenter, and they still have sex, and they still drink wine, and they still, all of these things that we pretend that they don't do.
Yeah.
Because
they try to think they're like Barbie dolls and Ken dolls.
Yeah, and it's an unfair standard to hold somebody to. But there was that, that kind of, childlike adoration of him when I was really small, and it was very sad, and it was very sad to see, because it's but as you say, he was presenting all sorts of things back then. I think it really he's left showbiz now.
But on the flip side, on a happier note, you got to spend a weekend with John Leslie, but not in the way we all said all that stuff, not like the rock star lifestyle kind of way, but you were leading a songwriting retreat, and this man, he walks in. So it's one thing to know someone is going to be around, but as a surprise, how did you sort of compose yourself?
Oh my holy God. It took every ounce of my self-control, of which I don't have a huge amount, and I think years of being a performer really, really helped me. I sort of developed this, like I say, I was a very shy child, and I just was obsessed with music, and ended up performing and stuff. Even though I was very shy, I did a lot of performances even from when I was really small, and I learned to sort of develop this shield that's on the top, and underneath you're going, oh my God, but your face is like, everything's fine. And I definitely did that. So this songwriting retreat, it was so weird, because I'd already spoken to him on the phone as well. He rang me to book onto the thing. And he was I don't know where he lives now, but he was living in Edinburgh at the time, and I'm in the south in the UK, and he'd flown down to do this songwriting retreat, and it was this amazing event that we used to do, and it was in the South Downs in Hampshire, where it's all rolling hills and forests, and loads and loads of nature, and simplicity of life. And it was at this place where they've got a classroom. Well, they call it the Woodland Classroom, but it's this beautiful building made out of mud and trees in the forest, where they've got an open fireplace and all of that. And we were doing some sessions in there, and I was staying in a yurt, and we were doing some sessions in there, and everybody else was camping, or it was freakishly cold. I remember that weekend as well. And so the induction session was in this the first session was in this in the Woodland Classroom. So it was right down in the woods. There's no electricity, there's no lights to get there or anything, and we just had the light of the fire, and I was just welcoming everybody and saying, this is what we're going to do this weekend. We're here to talk creativity and support each other in being creative, and I knew that not everybody was there, and because he'd had such a long journey, he was late. And I'd started. I'd already started, and I was essentially presenting. I was standing out talking when he walked in the room, and I looked at him, and I looked around, and I looked at the floor, and I looked back at him like, that is John Leslie. But he booked it under a different name, and I just thought I just chose to respect that if he wanted everybody to know, then he would have said. And so I just sort of I don't know, really. It was one of the most bizarre moments of my life. The more I think about it, it's just
So he was there to learn songwriting?
Yeah.
Oh, That was my big thing when you told me you went to a songwriting retreat. I'm like, he didn't seem like he had maybe music in his repertoire, but he went to this.
He you know, we creative people all dip into lots of different things, and yeah, it was just how I know it was something that he was exploring, and yeah, I mean, I got to work with him through the weekend. I got to play, you know, help him with his songs that he was writing and play his songs for him and play things
Were they
back to him
good?
and all of that. And yeah, he was everybody, you know, those weekends were amazing because it's just falling away of the judgment, and it's much, you know, I always try and encourage everybody to, I think creativity is really important for people for their own wellness, and if you feel the urge to make things and to do things and to create things, that the end result should not be judged. You should just be free to enjoy that process of making stuff, and then, you know, whatever happens. But he, you know, definitely had some really, you know, strong ideas about and unique ideas about what he was exploring, and I would kind of run it in a way that I would sort of, you know, not teach exactly, but I would give like little things for little challenges and things like, if you're stuck, try this, and if you're stuck, try this, and have a think about this. And I would have activities for people to do so that they're not just like sitting in the woods with a pen. So there was stuff to do, but so it was a combination of like, and everybody had one-to-one time with me as well throughout the weekend. So everybody who was on the course had a one-to-one. I'm like, oh my god, John Leslie's coming. and they were in my yurt, so everyone's like coming to my yurt for their one-to-one. I'm like, oh my god, John Leslie's coming to my yurt.
I can even imagine like my crush from when I was 11 walking into my world and I had to help them. I would be a mess.
Absolutely. I don't know how I kept it together, to be honest. I think I just really sort of was, I really wanted to make sure I'd made a really big thing, and this is really important to me, about everybody respecting each other. And to be fair, I was really glad that I'd said that before he arrived. because you could see everybody else. I mean, there was another one of the other participants is a similar age to me, and you could see that, you know, some of the people who were like the same age as me, all having the same thought.
They're like, oh my god,
and they're all like whispering. And at breakfast, because we're staying there, so at breakfast everyone's like, do you think is that John Leslie? Do you think that's John Leslie? And people are coming up to me going, is that John Leslie? And I'm like, just leave him alone. Like, just let the man be. Let the man be. And I'm like, yes, of course I think it's John Leslie. And then towards the end of the weekend, one of the other participants finally plucked up the courage, so what happened was that it was May Bank Holiday weekend, which is meant to be reasonably warm in the UK, and everybody was going to camp, and then we had this spike, like -4 freezing weather, and everybody else who was camping went into the guest house, so they were all staying in the guest house together. And but I couldn't do that because I was using my yurt as like workshop space, so it was part of the program. Like, I needed that room, so everyone else was staying in the guest house. And towards the end of the weekend, one of the girls said to him, I think you sent me a Blue Peter badge when I was 11. and they just, after like 3 or 4 days, whatever it was, it finally came out, and they had the conversation, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there for that.
I wonder how many people still have their Blue Peter badges today. That would be something I definitely would have kept.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely something that was very special. And, you know, I mean, if you look at people probably sell them on eBay for loads and loads of money, but yeah, it's definitely, they were definitely a special thing.
Well, I'm so excited that the Rue Peter badge from RuPaul's Drag Race has history with the BBC.
Yeah, definitely.
So as we do with 99.9% of our chats here, we're going to end this portion with some make-believe. So if 11-year-old you had your dreams come true and you at 18 landed with John Leslie later in life, what do you think your lives would be like today?
So if I'd ended up with my childhood crush, I think, I probably would still be very similar. Maybe he might have been selfishly, he might have been good for my TV career. Probably living in Scotland, writing songs. Yeah, looking through they used to have a thing. I think if I had married someone who was a Blue Peter presenter, I'd have to have a house with all the different shaped windows. So they have this thing where, you look through the round window or you look through the square window, and I think I would have to have a house. We'd have a house with a round window and a square window.
Well, you have to. I mean, I think he would appreciate it. I'll call back to his career.
The poor man, bless him. Oh my God.
So now
it's funny thought.
Now it's time to talk more about what you have going on. But to go back to your crush for a second, were there any musical components to Blue Peter when you were a kid that maybe helped you with music?
There may well have been. I don't remember that specifically, but I think it was very encouraging. It did encourage, certainly with arts and making things and stuff like that. That I used to, one of the other things I did that drove my family crazy was collect loo rolls, but like the inside of toilet roll, like cardboard bit in the middle, and they were always making stuff out of household items. So you would, you'd make stuff out of washing up bottles and the loo roll holders. They always used to make like desk tidies out of them and stuff, and I went through a phase of incessantly making desk tidies.
Everybody got one for Christmas.
yeah, absolutely, all made out of old toilet rolls, and I used to save them, like every single toilet roll I had in my room. And when I was like maybe 10, 9 or 10, I would just keep, I can't believe I'm telling you this, I would have had loads of these toilet rolls, and everybody, like if anyone finished a loo roll and they didn't give me the thing in the middle, I'd get really upset.
You're the loo roll girl.
I had hundreds of these, and I kept them until we got a puppy when I was about 11, and when she was teething, she wanted things to eat, and I would just feed them to the dog. Yeah, I'm not sure that's good advice for anyone who's got a dog.
Well, your family sort of gave you that head start in music because your dad put a guitar in your hands. You were just a kid. Do you remember the first song you ever sort of grasped on the guitar?
I remember singing a lot and being around, like my dad playing a lot when I was little. And somebody asked me, the first time I really remember playing in earnest was when I was, like preteen, young teenager. But I'd had piano lessons from when I was 5. And my dad played keys as well, so did my nana, his mum. And my piano teacher was a really tall man, and I loved him as well.
Love that height.
I was just little tiny 5-year-old with my little fat fingers, like trying to play piano. And I don't really remember playing the guitar when I was really small, but I asked my dad once, because somebody asked me in a radio interview, and I said, I think I was like maybe 12 or 13, and I came home and asked Dad and said, how old was I when you started trying to get me to play guitar? And he said, I don't know, about 3. So I think Dad had been trying. He was always very keen for me to he loved music, he was really keen for us to learn instruments and have that exposure. But there was just always loads and loads of music in the house, and the records that my parents used to listen to were amazing. And a couple of years ago, I wrote a song for my mum for Mother's Day. And that's a funny story actually, because I have a thing about writing songs for people, and it started off being an outlet for actually a couple of bereavements I had when I was younger, and I've written songs about these people that I'd lost. And then it sort of moved on to writing songs about just life experience, you know, as a lot of people do in my young and inexperienced and clumsy way. And my mum had said to me a long time ago, she said, can I have my song before I die, please? So she didn't she wanted me to do it. She said, don't write a song about me when I'm dead, do it now, sort of thing. And a couple of years ago, the stars aligned, and I was inspired to write something for my mum for Mother's Day. And I was thinking about kind of where to start, particularly musically with it. Like, you know, you've got every choice under the sun of like what kind of song you want to write. But what really reminds me of my mum when I was really small is Joni Mitchell. So I remember that I've got a very few memories of being at home with my mum when it was just the two of us. Like my dad was at work and my brother was at school, and being the second child, like I don't have a lot of memories of being with my mum by myself when I was really little. And I just remember that, you know, when my mum was a stay-at-home mum until I went to school, so she would be, you know, cooking or cleaning the house or hoovering or whatever. And I just remember these amazing records being on all the time, and she would play Joni Mitchell, and the two that I particularly remember were the Ladies of the Canyon album and the Graceland album that she would play when she was cleaning the house when it was just us. And that album, Ladies of the Canyon, just always makes me think about my mum. You know, she's fine, she's still here. It's, you know, it just wherever I am in the world, if I hear any music from that album, it reminds me of those, you know, those really early memories. And so I kind of musically went there with this song that I you know, used the Joni Mitchell tuning, which is different from how you normally tune a guitar, and wrote my mum's song with that. So it's got that like Joni vibes, but there's kind of like Joni and my mum are all mixed in together. But I just had amazing exposure to incredible music from such a young age. And like I say, we didn't have the telly on a lot. There was, you know, music, either my dad would be at home playing guitar, or we would have records on, or, you know, music on at home. And my dad's mum also used to socialise through music. So whenever we had family get-togethers, she was one of 14.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there were a lot of them. And I remember that she had this big like string bag of percussion, and everybody had to take part. So you couldn't just say, oh, I don't know that song, Nano. I can't sing that. I don't know. I can't play that on the piano, Nano. I can't. Like, no. And she would find something for you to do, and that has been a massive influence that I hadn't realised until much later in my life. Until I realised that I was doing the same thing at my own gigs. I would do that. I used to take egg shakers and pass them around, and, you know, and everybody would take part, and I was like, make everyone do it.
It's like a homage to your grandma when you play.
Yeah, and I didn't even realise I was doing it until years afterwards. I was like, oh my God, this is... Until I had to like a moment of like, I was walking around with the bag, collecting up the percussion afterwards, going, oh my God, I'm my grandmother. This is Nana. This is, and I mean, she, that was long after she passed away. It was, I've got goosebumps just talking about it now. It's funny that these things, you don't realise how much they, how much they influence you. And I think, like I say, music was a way of socializing and bringing people together. In my very early years, it was a way of, particularly with my nana, it was a way of expressing love. So it's a way of like showing people that you love them, and it's a way of giving them attention and care and all those kind of things. And I think that it just got under my skin from when I was really young. It was like, you know, this is how the world is, and I still experience the world by what I can hear and what, you know, not even just music, like, you know, just I listen, I experience the world by listening, and yeah, it's amazing.
So I always think it's one thing to be a fan of music, like myself, but I think it's a whole nother level when you want to revolve your life around music and be a musician. When did you sort of know you wanted to do that? Were you like, well, I'm dead set on making music?
I think I always knew, and I was always a performer. So I did my first solo as a singer when I was 8. I think I actually played a duet with my piano teacher when I was about 6, like, you know, in a school concert thing. So I've been performing from when I was, so my first solo I was 8 years old, and carried on doing that. But I just, you know, I grew up in this culture that we all grow up in, that doesn't validate that as a life choice. And I went to a school where, you know, they want to churn out lawyers and you know, lawyers and doctors and proper people.
Yeah,
and
I feel you there.
running around finger painting and singing on the swing and stuff like that. And I remember when I was, you know, when we started talking about careers at school, I said that I wanted to be a singer, and the next word was no. So I did spend some time trying to have a normal life. You know, I tried to do all the things that I felt were expected of me, and I just got more and more and more unhappy. And there was a moment where I was coming home from work, and I'd had a really hard day, and I was on the train, and the previous train had been cancelled, and so it was ram-packed. It was rush hour. There were hundreds of people on the train, and the train journey was about 20 minutes, and I had my laptop with me with some a piece of scoring software on the laptop. So this is a piece of software where you can, you know, write the music, you know, like the tadpoles they call them. And you know, so rather than a program like GarageBand where you're, you know, recording sounds and stuff, I was actually composing, you know, I was writing something. And the train was absolutely rammed, and I'd been waiting all day, and I had like some ideas during the day, and I'd been waiting all day to like get my hands on this piece of music that I was making, and I was so desperate to do it that I balanced my laptop on the bin and stood there amongst, you know, being bashed about by people, just desperately scoring out this piece of music. And I just sort of almost had an out-of-body experience of watching myself do that, thinking, this is what you want to do. If there is any gesture that explains what you want to do with your time on this earth, that is it. You know, being squashed into an absolutely ram-packed train, standing on the bin, balancing your laptop on the bin so that you can, you know, score 8 bars of music. And that was the moment really where I knew that I was on the wrong path, and I had to do something about that.
Well, now you're embarking on this new journey over the next year, One Woman, One Guitar. You'll be releasing a new song every 2 weeks, and so far you have 2 out as of today.
Yeah.
Did you have do you have a lot banked already? That's how I am. I would have at least 10 or so in the bank so I didn't have to worry about them. Or are you letting them come to you naturally?
No, I'm writing them as I go along, and I think that is and also I'm having different ideas about what I'm gonna do. It's kind of it's a bit of an open road. It's really nice. But yeah, I'm essentially writing them as we go along. So if people are you know, if people are interested in following the journey, I don't know where it's going. So if you want to come with me, it'd be great to have some company, but I don't know what's going to happen. So where are we now? So we're October now. So the third one, as of where we're speaking now, the third one is out tomorrow. So the third one's out on the 7th of October.
I think there'll be a few more out by when this drops, so we'll have like maybe 3 out.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's every 2 weeks. So at the time of recording, we've got 2 out and the third one out tomorrow. And it's I didn't want to put any other restrictions on it other than it's just me and my guitar. So one of the ones actually that's been released already is a solo version of She Is the Moon, which is the one that I wrote for my mum, the Joni one. So yeah, as it stands, we're currently recording the tracks for December. So November's in the bag, November's done. And yeah, so we're just recording what we're recording at the moment are the December tracks. I have no idea what's going to happen in January.
Have you noticed any sort of theme to what you've recorded so far?
I think I'm definitely enjoying the fact that they're getting released quickly. So I'm very inspired by like what's happening at the moment. Something that I've just written refers to the passing away of the Queen. It's not a song about her, but there's a reference to it. We lost our monarch of 70 years a couple of weeks ago, and that was a historical moment. It's, you know, and I like the fact that that's a moment in history that's found a way into one of my songs, which is going to be released fairly quickly to when that happened. I've written a Christmas song, so I do normally try and put something out at Christmas, and that was written fairly recently. So the Christmas one's called The Best Gift Is Love, and that's actually one of the November tracks. So depending on when you're listening to this, it might be out already. It's called The Best Gift Is Love, and I wrote that. Wrote and recorded it maybe 2 weeks ago. So compared to where you might write a song. With my first album, there were songs that I'd written when I was 15, and then I wasn't recording it until years later.
Was it weird to look back at what you wrote? Because I'm a writer, so I look back at journals and I'm like, girl, what were you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh God.
Absolutely. I used to get really embarrassed about it, and I used to feel like my early work is really embarrassing. And I was working with a coach who said, well, quite frankly, if you can't look back at something you did 10 years ago and see how you can make it better, then what have you been doing with your time? That to allow yourself to grow as an artist, I think is something that we can all make peace with. And I'm definitely noticing that I'm really enjoying the restriction of, because I love harmonies and I love the production process, and like there's so many bells and whistles, and so many, like my last album, some of the tracks have got like 2 choirs and 100 banks of backing vocals, and really, really big productions, and I'm actually really enjoying the restriction of you can't I can't pretty it up by putting loads of backing vocals on it or making a really big production. It's just bringing it back to the story and to the song. And I know, some of them, I already know that some of them are going to go, I'm going to produce them in different ways, and they'll be released as fully produced tracks. One of the other November tracks is called It's Okay to Cry. And that was something I, wrote a couple of weeks ago and recorded it, and it's going to be out in November. And I know that's quite it's quite poppy, and it would definitely benefit from a different production, but it's like I'm going to stick to what I said I would do, which is acoustic arrangements.
So in the future, we'll hear some of these maybe like on an album redone, like revamped.
Yeah, maybe. It's and I think some of them so I play in a band as well, so some of them will naturally lend themselves to, you know, slotting into our live show. And I'll do that. I'm also doing my first I'm doing a house concert in the studio to make some videos for this project, for the acoustic project. So I'm starting to just do the first gigs with the one girl one guitar songs. So I'm like kind of going back to, you know, playing by myself, which is also fun. You know, I love the band, but there is something really simple about, you know, this is what I used to do when I was younger, that I'd write a song, and then that afternoon or that evening there was a time I lived in Cardiff for a bit when I was very young adult, and it's a brilliant place for musicians. You can play every night of the week if you want, and I would like write a song in the afternoon and then go and gig it that afternoon, you know. Gig it that night, and it's there's a kind of rush about that you know, this is all very new and it's all very fresh, and you're like so in love with these new songs when they're new and all of that. And I'm getting a little bit of that with this process, that within like 6 weeks of writing it or whatever, the songs can be out there for people to hear. So
what sort of kickstarted the project? What made you say, let's just me and my guitar, let's do this?
That is a really good question. Have you heard of a book called The Artist's Way? So it's written by a playwright. She's a playwright, she's a poet, and all other manner of things, called Julia Cameron. And she's written this book called The Artist's Way, which is like the creatives' Bible, and it's very popular amongst writers and screenwriters and stuff like that. But it's like a 12-step program for creatives, and I tried it years ago and really liked it, but I was kind of in this, I think it was too threatening, because I was in this period of my life where I was like, no, I'm trying to be normal, I'm trying to, I've had my time to be creative, and I've had my time to do that, and I'm trying to have a proper job and have a normal life and all of that. And I think that it touched too many nerves that I couldn't really go very far with it. And recently, I think I bought another copy during the pandemic, and I think I've carried it around with me everywhere for maybe a year. I've learned so much about myself, considering I'm a full-time musician, and I have, in a way, I feel like I have no right to be asking for more time to be creative, because that's pretty much all I do. But I learned so much about myself going through this process, with reading this book and doing the, sort of following the process, and it just unlocked it unlocked a tidal wave of songs, and I've just been writing, and I'm writing quicker than I can get them out of my head. Like there have been a couple of days where it's almost been unbearable, that I actually have to go and do some emails and get some shopping and function in the world, and I've got 4 different songs knocking around in my head, all like trying to get born, and there's it's sort of been quite overwhelming. And I think not having an outlet for that energy is what was making it hard. And now that I've got so that was partly it was to channel this incredible wave of creativity that I'm feeling at the moment. I'm also working with some amazing co-writers at the moment, and so it's a lovely opportunity to have something to like offer you know, rather than, well, let's just write something and see what happens, or let's write something for this. I also wanted to embrace the digital space, so I've been quite slow to do that, really, because I'm pretty old school in a lot of ways. And I'm also, in my spare time, complete tree hugger, total hippie, conservationist. Like, we're quite active on the conservation kind of front.
That's so surprising, since you spent your time in a yurt doing songwriting.
Yeah. And I just feel like so much more about, you know, being an artist is about, you know, where we make our money is on merch. People will still make CDs even though people don't really use them. And I didn't want to, you know, I don't want to spend my life selling t-shirts, and I'm not really hugely comfortable continuing to make CDs and like have all of that plastic and everything in the world, just because I need to do that, because that's how artists make money. So I was, you know, it was a way of embracing the digital space to see like what would happen if I just released a new single every 2 weeks for an extended period of time. So yeah.
Well, this time next year you should have about over 2 dozen, if I do my math right. I'm not a math person, 26. I'm a writer. To do well in that class. So speaking of the digital space, where can people find you online and your music?
So thank you. So on Spotify, I'm just DiElle. It's DiElle, and there's a picture of there's a lovely picture by one of my artists, Lauren Norton. Somebody cuddling the earth. That's me. And there's songs that are released under One Girl, One Guitar. I've all got the same picture. So if you're looking for me on Spotify, if you look for DiElle and maybe Here Is My Heart, which was the first single, come and follow me there. That would be great. I'm still fairly new to the Spotify space, so it'd be nice to have some Spotify friends. And Bandcamp have been amazing through the pandemic. They've supported artists with, like, I think it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that they've waived in revenue share to support artists through the pandemic. So come to our Bandcamp. You can listen to everything for free. That's DiElle again, DiElle.bandcamp.com, and there's a function there where you can follow or leave an email, and I can contact you. You'll also get updates when new things go live and all of that. On social media, it's DiElle Music UK. It's DiElle Music in the normal way, UK. I have been cloned on Instagram, so please make sure that it's not the one with the underscore at the end. It's
an imposter.
Oh God, it's so tedious. But yeah, and I'm sorry, Instagram, but you won't do anything about it. So yeah, please be careful, because they're trying to get you to buy Bitcoin.
Oh God.
But, yeah. So yeah, it's DiElle Music UK, no add-ons, and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Come and duet me on TikTok. I'm doing like little duets of all of the singles, and like, you know, just covers of songs that I like and everybody likes. But yeah, I'm fairly new to TikTok as well, so come play.
Well, TikTok is still something that I'm not big on. I just have, like, my phone doesn't have the capacity to do more than the basic apps. Right. And I'm like, my mind's like, I look when the TikTok makes it over to Instagram, then I'm like, oh, yay. Yeah. I'm like, it's found its way. I'll see it. It's popular now. Yay.
Yeah. It took me a little while to get on board with TikTok, really, but I think I just didn't really get it. I think you have to have a thing that you do on TikTok, and this is what I've, you know, what suits me is the duets, because it's everything that I love about music. You know, you can give tiny little snippets of you know, just little earworms to people of, you know, of songs and things, and you can play little bits of music, but it's bringing people together. You know, bringing people together through music is kind of where I thrive, really. And it's really good fun. It's really, really good fun.
Well, everyone, go duet with DiElle. And I do want to thank you, DiElle, for taking the time to talk to me about your TV host crush. And everyone, you can find all of DiElle's information below. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it.